Hi friends, welcome. This morning's video is brought to you by my morning cup of coffee. And here we go. And these pieces have all been sanded and they're ready to be painted. I like to use Rust-oleum's white linen chalked paint, and it has really good coverage, I think, although I did have to use 2 to 3 coats on this black to get full coverage, and that could be kind of costly. So for those of you who really like to use, I don't know, Dixie Belle or one of those other high-end mineral paints, it might actually end up being about the same price because I did use several coats of the Rust-oleum, but I do like that it's really accessible. I can just run to the hardware store and pick another can up when I run out, and it's really easy. So that's the one I've used, but I will say I'm not exactly against the idea of trying out some of those trendy brands of mineral chalk paints. So that might be in my future. So here you can see I'm painting the tops, and maybe you can't see. It's gray. The bottom is linen white, and the top is the aged gray, also the Rust-oleum chalked paint. And the reason for this, I learned from the furniture flipping teacher, which I have really come to enjoy her videos, so you should definitely follow her. This technique of using the gray on the top and using a glaze over that. So that will be what I'm going for today. And here you can see I also have sanded and prepped these nightstands. And what I'm doing here is just cleaning them. This is actually the second time I've cleaned them, because another thing the furniture flipping teacher taught me is to clean twice. So clean before you sand and clean after you sand. And that has been very useful. So I'm making sure I get this really clean inside, even like inside the dresser and the nightstands, because whenever you go to give this to someone to buy, if they take out the drawers and they see gross cobwebs and lint and blah, it's just not a really good, it's just kind of gross. So I made sure I got those all really clean. And I just use a Norwex cloth and some Dawn dish soap. I don't know if I'm supposed to use dish soap with Norwex, but I did. And so here, this was really one of 2 damaged spots on these pieces. And it was just kind of coming apart. And so what I did was I took just regular wood glue, and I like to use the paintbrush to kind of get it in between the layers of the particle board, because it was just kind of smushy coming apart. So that's what you can see I'm doing here. And the thing about wood glue is it dries really hard. So there might be a better solution, there might be a better product that will actually repair this better, but I just used what I had on hand, and then I just used a binder clip because I cannot keep track of those clamps they use for these sorts of things. So binder clip it is, and then let that dry. And actually I was really surprised because I couldn't even really tell where I had done the repair, and it took the paint just fine. So just a little bit of work on repairing these pieces. Other than that, all of them were really in good shape. And here's the second one that I needed to work on, and I just used regular wood filler because the edge of the corner had just like chipped off a little bit. So we just built that up with some wood filler, and wood filler usually dries really quickly, but this was kind of a bigger damaged area, so I had to really add a good portion of wood filler and then make sure it's just dried completely. But it's really satisfying to let it dry and then just sand it and see, oh my gosh, you put the paint on after you sand it and it just looks like it's part of the material. It's so cool. So here I'm again painting with the linen white on the bottom, and these are all going to match, of course, the linen white on the bottom and then this cool gray on the tops. And I know that for a lot of people, the white furniture is kind of on the out. I don't know, it's not really super trendy anymore. I know that a lot of things are more popular, but actually in my area, it seems like people really like this look still. So I'm in Northwest Missouri, and this seems like a style that everybody still really likes. So here's the thing, I'm not going to keep changing to follow the trends if people still like the, farmhouse look or whatever you want to call this look. So that's kind of why I'm doing the white. And I am kind of getting sick of white because this is one of many projects that I've been doing in the white, especially in the white chalked paint. But I gotta tell you, if it sells, it sells. It's not something that I'm using necessarily for my house, though I would, but it's something that people like. So I'm gonna just say, if you are doing this as a way to make money on the side, to sell or something like that, then just go with what people like. Don't worry about the trends, because, at the end of the day, people are gonna buy what they like. So kind of get a feel for what is selling in your area. I am sanding down. I think I did add a little bit of wood filler after I did the initial gluing of this, and so that was just kind of some extra support and coverage with the wood glue. So here you can see I'm sanding it down, kind of trying to follow the the shape of this angle here is kind of weird. So I just use like a really soft, spongy sanding, what are those called? Hand sander, sure. And here I am painting over it. So you can see, hey, it looks pretty good. It's just looks like it's part of the drawer. So I was really happy with how this turned out. Sometimes my repair work is not that great, but this one turned out just fine. So I didn't even mention it to the buyer because it is just good as new. Usually though, if there is a defect, it's a really good idea to tell them so that they know, hey, this person's being honest, there's a little bit of damage, and they can know that ahead of time. Especially with like drawers and things. If drawers are not opening properly, the buyer will really want to know about that, especially if they find out later and then realize, oh, well, they didn't tell me about this. So just a good idea to remember. Now, by this point, you're probably sick of watching me paint. But let me tell you, there's more of it to come. And I'm going to take a second now to tell you about my journey with paintbrushes. So originally, when I first started kind of doing this, I thought, wow, I cannot believe the Dollar Tree has paintbrushes 2 for $1 or a bigger brush for $1. Well, $1.25, thank you to inflation. But anyway, I thought, oh my goodness, that is so cheap. I will just use a paintbrush and then throw it away. And, well, let's just say I did try an expensive paintbrush because I kept hearing people raving about them. And, well, it's worth the extra money because the super soft bristles of those nice and expensive paintbrushes, they don't leave those brush strokes, especially with chalk paint. I know I don't have one of those fancy brushes that, like is for chalk paint, although I did get some. And the funny thing is I think it said natural fibers or natural bristles or something like that, but it literally smelled like a horse butt, so I guess it's horsehair. I don't know. But I didn't really like using it. It seemed like it still kind of left bristle marks, and so I just thought, nope, I'm not doing that. So here's the corner that we repaired, and you can see as I'm painting over it, it's really kind of cool. It just looks like part of the corner is completely normal, like all the other corners. which is what we were going for. So I'd say that's a win for that one. And that's why it's always good to take your time and repair any damages that you may find. Also, I'll note here, you see a little tag on the back. That tag says Ashley Furniture, and that's the brand of these guys. And the buyer actually wanted to see this for proof that it was Ashley Furniture. So that's always a good idea to leave uncovered so that they can see it. So just any markings that you find, if you're able to leave them, don't paint over them. So I like to paint the drawers all outside of the chest and then let them dry. I put them back into the chest. It just makes a whole lot more sense to me for space, but just don't close them all the way. Also, if you don't have pulls on them yet, it'll be a little tricky to get them open later. I'm painting the top of this low boy dresser. I think that's what that's called. And it's time for a coffee refill. Thank goodness for coffee. And just touching up on the gray tops for the nightstands and the dresser as well. And here they are, all ready to go for the next part, which is probably my favorite. And now it's time to make this kind of a faux wood top out of the glaze. And I'm using the aged, oh no, that's not right. It's aged gray underneath and then smoked glaze on top. Also from Rust-oleum. So all these products work really well together. And here I'll show you how to apply the glaze. I just painted it on with a foam brush. Later, I decided on this project that I liked using a bristle brush better to apply it, but you just want to get the product onto the surface in kind of nice even strokes and even on the sides, but be careful because it might drip. So make sure you don't drip on your white bottoms. And here I'm just wiping it back. I let it sit for a little while, follow the instructions on the can, and I just wiped it back until I got the kind of look that I was going for. I wanted it to be a little bit lighter gray on the top, so not like a super dark wood look, but just a really light, soft look. And after that first initial application of glaze, I did come back and put some more glaze on because I wanted it to be just a little bit darker. So that is how I was able to achieve this look. And looky, they all match. So cute. And at this point, these guys are ready to be gently distressed. So I waited until all the paint was dry and took this little hand sander and just really gently, I like to gently distress, just on the sides where you would normally show wear. And I don't like to go crazy on the surfaces, so just on the edges, just a little bit. And I really like that the black is kind of coming through. So this was just perfectly exactly what I was wanting. So yeah, it's really messy though. But I always say just gently distress because you can always come back and distress a little bit more. So then the next step is going to be to put on the top coat, and we are so close to finishing. So this is also the Rust-oleum matte finish top coat, and it also is in that line of chalked paint. And it worked great. I was a little confused at the beginning because, like you can see, it's kind of milky. It's not exactly like clear like I expected, but it does go on clear and then dries really nicely in that matte finish. So you can still have that chalk look. Now it's time to make sure you have the inside of your drawers really clean, because I am going to apply some paper to the inside bottoms, and make sure you do that thing where you measure twice and cut once, otherwise you'll waste a lot of paper like I usually do. And I got this paper at Walmart, but also Amazon has some great varieties. Next, it's time to do one of the last finishing touches, and that is to paint the hardware or put on new hardware, whatever you decide. And also here, I'm showcasing my 2-year-old's beautiful artwork in non-toxic washable marker, which actually takes 3 coats of primer to cover. Yikes. So that was a fun little adventure, but thankfully it was on the back, not on the freshly finished front. Moving on, we now have the sanded headboard footboard ready to go with the chalked white paint, and bam, there it is, ready to go. I thought I'd skip some of the painting footage for you. You're welcome. And I did use that matte finish top coat for all the surfaces. And here we go, here's the beginning. And here is what we ended up with. I listed these on Facebook Marketplace for $725 for the whole set, and I actually had a whole lot of interest. Like, my Marketplace page was blowing up. I was having a lot of likes and messages. Everybody seemed to have a lower offer in mind, which was fine, but I wanted to kind of wait around and see if I could get asking price. And actually, after one buyer falling through, I did have somebody who was willing to just come and take it away for $500. So I got the set for $100, and I put about $100 in supplies into it and sold it for $5. So that's $300 profit on these pieces.